Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're doing something a little different. We're moving beyond the grand narratives, the epic battles, and trying to get into the intimate details, the daily life of a true legend.
And who bigger than Alexander the Great? A name synonymous with, well, conquest, power, almost myth itself.
Exactly. It's so easy to picture him, like you said, as this bronze statue always leading a charge.
Right, always on the battlefield.
But what was he really like, day to day? Beyond the battlefield, beyond the grand pronouncements, how did he spend his time? That's what we're digging into today.
That's the fascinating question, isn't it? How did he navigate the ordinary hours within his, let's face it, extraordinary life?
Absolutely. And our mission here is to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge, the key insights from some really fascinating material excerpts from A Day in the Life of Alexander the Great.
A really unique perspective.
It is. By focusing on just one sort of representative day, we think you can get a real shortcut to being genuinely well-informed about this iconic figure.
Yeah. Unpack his leadership, his personal habits.
And that incredible boundless ambition that just drove him relentlessly. We want to see the man behind the myth.
And it's amazing, isn't it, how much the mundane, the everyday stuff can reveal about the monumental figure, the rhythm of his day, the choices he made in those quieter moments. That's often where the real foundations of his success lie.
Those small details give us a glimpse into his character, his priorities, his ultimate vision.
Precisely.
Okay, let's do it. Let's peel back the layers of one extraordinary day, starting right at the beginning. Dawn. Alexander's disciplined awakening.
Right. Picture this. Very early morning, soft light just starting to filter into a royal tent.
Not a palace.
No, definitely not a palace. This is a campaign tent. We're deep in Central Asia, somewhere in what's now modern-day Afghanistan. Dusty plains all around.
Wow.
And Alexander, he's what, 26 years old at this point? Opens his eyes.
26. It's incredible.
It is. And you can almost hear the quiet sounds outside, the rustle of his elite guards, the Hypaspists.
His personal guard unit.
Yeah, his elite infantry often acting as bodyguards. They're keeping watch, and this wasn't, a lazy morning stretch.
No.
Despite years of constant campaigning, endless battles, he rises early every single day, like clockwork. That discipline, it says so much.
And that early rising, especially after all that campaigning, it points to something deeper, doesn't it? Something forged way back in his youth. What about his training? Under Aristotle and his father, King Philip II.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That training was fundamental. It went way beyond just physical conditioning or military drills.
How so?
Well, Aristotle, the philosopher, instilled this discipline of the mind, logical thinking, critical analysis, this relentless curiosity.
Right, the intellectual side.
Exactly. And then his father, Philip II himself, a brilliant military innovator and a really formidable king.
Yeah, a tough act to follow.
Definitely. Philip instilled the discipline of command, strategy, and just sheer endurance. You get this combination.
The mind and the body.
Yes. A leader who could physically endure anything the campaign threw at him, but whose mind was also constantly working, planning, strategizing. It's that foundational work ethic, that self-mastery, that really underpinned everything he achieved later.
You'd maybe expect a king, a world conqueror, to wake up surrounded by luxury, but the picture painted here is so different. He dresses simply.
Remarkably simply. Bronze armor, etched with lions, a symbol of royalty and strength.
Okay, so some symbolism there.
Oh, yes. And a purple cloak, again, purple being the color of royalty, of imperial power.
Right.
But then, right alongside that, sandals. Worn thin from thousands, literally thousands of miles on campaign.
That's such a striking contrast, the royal cloak and the worn-out sandals.
Isn't it? It shows both the king and the soldier, the grandeur, but also the gritty reality of his life. He's not removed, he's on the ground, covering those miles just like his men.
And the breakfast. Almost Spartan.
Totally. Dried figs, a bit of bread, and some diluted wine. That's it.
Not exactly a feast fit for a king who's conquering the world. What kind of message does that simplicity send, especially to his troops?
A huge message. It's pragmatism. It's solidarity. He's wearing the symbols of power, yes, the armor, the cloak, but his personal habits, they're like any other soldiers, almost ascetic. He wasn't feasting while they ate basic rations.
Right.
It suggests he's focused on the mission, not on personal comfort, no pretension. And that would resonate deeply. It builds trust, loyalty. He's not asking anything of them he isn't doing himself.
And what really strikes me is what happens next. No downtime after breakfast, No easing into the day.
None at all. He finishes that simple meal and boom, straight into the morning council with his generals.
So it's not just about waking up early, it's about immediately engaging, hitting the ground running.
Exactly that. It shows this relentless focus, this unwavering drive, no transition needed. He's already in it, strategically immersed.
From personal routine straight to high-level strategy.
Yeah. It just underscores his incredible capacity for continuous high-intensity work. His mind is always geared towards the next objective, the next challenge. Amazing stamina, mentally and physically.
So the council happens, plans are made, and by sunrise, the entire army is on the move.
Tens of thousands of soldiers marching across those dusty plains of Central Asia.
And Alexander isn't watching from a comfy tent in the rear.
No way. He's right at the front, riding Bucephalus.
His legendary horse. The one only he could tame.
That's the one. This magnificent, powerful war horse, and he's leading, literally leading from the very front of this massive column.
Wow. And on this particular day, there's news?
Yes. Scouts ride in. They report a mountain fortress up ahead is refusing to surrender. Resisting.
And Alexander's reaction?
Immediate. No hesitation. He orders a detachment straight out for reconnaissance, get eyes on it, gather intel.
That act of leading from the front?
Yeah.
It's more than just symbolic, isn't it?
Oh, hugely powerful. It's not directing from safety. It's embodying the advance. He's sharing the dust, the heat, the danger.
Writing Bucephalus adds to that image too, I imagine.
Definitely. It projects this image of unstoppable force, almost divine authority. Being right there at the head of tens of thousands, it must have been incredibly inspiring for his men. Built immense loyalty, courage. It's key to understanding that bond he had with them.
And that immediate order for reconnaissance, what does that tell us about his strategic mind?
It tells us he was incredibly tactical and decisive. Swift. He didn't wait around for detailed reports to filter up.
Just acted.
Instantly. Here's about a challenge, boom, take the first step. Gather intelligence, prepare for action. It's proactive, always anticipating, always seeking to understand the situation.
That's critical for success, surely, not just reacting.
Exactly. He often dictated the terms of engagement because he was thinking ahead. That's top-tier military leadership right there.
The scale is just staggering. Tens of thousands marching, thousands of miles already covered. But the source highlights something else, something often missed in these grand conquest stories. His personal connection. On the march, he's talking with his men, not at them.
Yes, like one of them.
He knows their names, knows their stories. And the source says this, more than conquest, binds them to him. That's a powerful statement.
It's profoundly insightful and arguably one of the most crucial parts of his leadership. Think about it, an army of that size.
Maintaining personal connection seems almost impossible.
It's extraordinary. It means he wasn't just a general issuing orders from on high. He cultivated this deep human element within this, incredibly effective, sometimes brutal military machine.
So it's loyalty built on more than just success or fear.
Absolutely. It's built on respect, recognition, a shared sense of purpose. When your commander knows your name, knows your story, values you as an individual.
You'd do anything for them.
Exactly. Your willingness to fight, to endure hardship, even to die, it just skyrockets. It turns an army into something more cohesive, more like a loyal family.
How challenging must that have been, though? To keep that up across such a vast, diverse force, what kinds of things do you think he heard from them?
Oh, it must have been an incredible tapestry of stories. Families back in Macedon or Greece, personal worries, hopes for land or riches after the campaign.
The everyday concerns of a soldier.
Yeah, the small victories, the big losses. Hearing that firsthand, it would have grounded him, wouldn't it? Connected his grand, epic vision to the real lives of the men making it happen.
It would give him a sense of responsibility.
A kind of paternal responsibility, maybe. Alongside the strategic drive. And think about the intelligence he gained. Unfiltered feedback on morale, on conditions, straight from the source. Better than any formal report.
That's a really good point. Direct intel.
It informed his leadership in a way few commanders ever achieve.
Okay, so we've seen the discipline dawn, the connection on the march. Now, as we move into midday, the heat rises and Alexander's focus shifts.
Yes, towards critical decisions. Diplomacy, and when that fails, direct, fierce action. We see the strategist and the warrior king emerge.
The scene shifts to a village.
A small village near the foothills of those mountains where the fortress is. Local leaders are brought before him.
And he doesn't just demand they submit.
No, it's more nuanced. He speaks through interpreters, lays out the options very clearly.
Which are?
Alliance, become part of the Macedonian sphere, maintain some local autonomy under his rule, or war. Destruction.
A clear choice. And the source says diplomacy often worked.
It often did. But crucially, if it didn't, or if there was resistance, there was zero hesitation to use overwhelming force.
That shows real flexibility, doesn't it? He's not just a hammer seeing nails everywhere.
Exactly. He's pragmatic. He understands the value of integrating territories smoothly when possible. Alliances bring stability, resources, maybe even troops.
Less costly than fighting everywhere.
Much less costly. In lives, resources, and the difficulty of ruling a resentful population afterwards, diplomacy was often the efficient path.
So how did he decide? When to talk, when to fight?
It would have been a calculation, assessing the resistance. If they seemed reasonable, open to terms, diplomacy was the smart move. If they were stubborn, hostile, delaying would just encourage them or put his own forces at risk. So swift action was needed then.
That flexibility is key.
Massively effective. He wasn't rigid, always focused on the strategic goal, using the best tool for the job. You can just imagine the tension in that village meeting room, can't you? The weight of those choices.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes diplomacy wasn't enough or wasn't even tried.
Right. The source gives an example. A stubborn faction tries to ambush his scouts near that fortress.
Bad move.
Very bad move. Alexander's response is immediate. Swift retaliation. A skirmish breaks out.
And he dives in.
He joins the charge himself, leads it. Bronze helmet gleaming, sword out right into the thick of it. The text describes him striking down enemies with the fury of a storm.
Wow. Not directing from the back.
No way. He's embodying the warrior spirit of his army. His involvement isn't just symbolic, it's active, it's lethal. It's absolutely crucial to his whole persona, his authority, his army's morale.
Seeing their king fighting right there beside them.
Electrifying. It proves he's sharing the same risks. He's not asking them to face danger he wouldn't face himself. It cements that reputation. He's not just a brilliant general, he's a warrior.
How much did that personal fearlessness contribute to their loyalty and his overall legacy?
It created an almost unbreakable bond. They respected his courage profoundly. They saw him as one of them in the most dangerous moments.
So they follow him anywhere.
Pretty much. Willing to push harder, endure more because they knew he was right there, equally committed, equally exposed. And for his legacy, it's huge. It solidified that image of the ultimate warrior king, the military genius who was also this peerless fighter.
That's the image that's captivated people for millennia.
Exactly. It made him a legend, not just a historical figure whose tactics you study. His personal valor is admired.
Okay, so the heat of battle passes. The intensity of midday decision-making gives way to the afternoon. And here we see a different side again.
Yeah, a calmer, more reflective period, but still intense in its own way. This is where we glimpse the restless mind of the philosopher-king.
How does that start?
Well, the battle's over, the camp is being set up for the night, and what does Alexander do first?
Not rest, I imagine.
He personally tends to the wounded.
Wow, that's quite something. A real counterpoint to the warrior image.
Isn't it? It shows this deep sense of responsibility, a belief that leadership means being present, as the source says, in both glory and grief.
Present in both glory and grief. That's powerful. What does that mean for a leader then or now? It really drives home that he wasn't distant.
It's about empathetic, responsible leadership. Celebrating wins together is easy, but being there when your people are suffering, wounded, grieving, acknowledging their sacrifice, offering comfort, showing you see their pain and value them.
That builds incredible trust.
An incredible bond. It shows he valued his men as humans, not just soldiers. For leaders today, in any field, it speaks volumes about vulnerability, empathy, connecting with your team, especially when things are tough. It builds resilience, loyalty, in a way authority alone never can.
And later in the afternoon, under a palm tree, we see him doing two very different things almost simultaneously.
Yeah, it's a fascinating juxtaposition. First, he's writing a letter to his mother, Queen Olympias.
Okay. A personal connection.
A really rare, intimate glimpse into his personal life. A link to his past, his family, amidst all this conquest. It reminds you he's a son carrying those bonds.
And then right after.
He turns straight to consulting maps with his generals. Back to the mission.
So the personal moment, then immediately back to strategy.
Without missing a beat. It shows that relentless forward momentum. The source says, always, there's the next horizon. India, the edge of the known world.
Always looking ahead.
Always. Never satisfied with the current victory. His gaze is fixed on the future, planning the next move, the next campaign. That insatiable ambition is always there.
And even then, amidst all this tending wounded, writing home, planning conquests, he makes time for intellectual pursuits.
He does. A philosopher, part of his retinue, joins him, and they talk, they debate.
Debate what? On campaign?
Fate, virtue, the nature of empire, big questions. Even surrounded by war, his mind craves knowledge, intellectual stimulation.
That's the Aristotle influence coming through loud and clear.
Absolutely. It shows his depth. He wasn't just a brute conqueror. He was grappling with these profound philosophical ideas about power, morality, the world he was reshaping.
Trying to make sense of it all.
Perhaps trying to understand the foundations of the empire he was building. It wasn't just about land. It was about ideas, about the principles of governance, maybe even his own destiny within that.
It does raise that big question, though. How did he square those philosophical ideals, things like virtue and justice, with the brutal reality of conquest?
That's the core paradox of Alexander, isn't it? Fascinating. He likely debated virtues like courage, justice, the common good, but probably interpreted them through his unique lens, the lens of a ruler, a conqueror, someone who believed he had a destiny.
So justice might mean imposing his order.
Possibly. Or virtue might be the decisive leadership needed to achieve his grand vision. He needed a framework where his actions, often violent, felt justified.
Maybe he saw conquest as a means to a greater end, spreading Hellenistic culture, unifying the world.
That's a common interpretation, that he saw himself bringing a kind of enlightenment, fulfilling a divine mission. His intellectual curiosity suggests he was constantly processing, rationalizing, trying to give his actions a deeper meaning beyond just taking territory.
Okay, so the afternoon's reflection and intellectual sparring fades as dusk begins to settle. The camp changes.
It really comes alive now. From quiet reflection to this vibrant, almost chaotic melting pot. This is where we see Alexander the Visionary, and maybe even the Dreamer.
What's this scene like?
The source describes firelight flickering everywhere. Music starts up, and crucially, the sound of murmurs in dozens of different languages.
A reminder of how diverse his army, his empire already was.
Exactly. Greeks, Macedonians, Persians, Egyptians, Thracians, all these different peoples brought together under him. And Alexander himself, he eats with his men.
Still reinforcing that connection.
Yes. Not dining separately in luxury, sharing the meal, but then there's also a formal element.
Which is?
He offers sacrifices to the gods, and specifically tonight, he's honoring Zeus-Ammon.
The oracle at Siwa Oasis, the one that declared him.
The son of Zeus, essentially divine.
That was a controversial declaration, but incredibly powerful politically.
Hugely powerful. It helped legitimize his rule, especially over places like Egypt, where rulers were traditionally seen as gods. Honoring Zeus-Ammon publicly reinforces that unique, elevated status.
It's a fascinating blend, isn't it? Eating with the men like one of them, then performing a ritual that sets him apart as divine.
It's incredibly sophisticated leadership. He's connecting on a human level, building camaraderie, and asserting this almost supernatural authority simultaneously. It commands both loyalty and awe, provides a unifying narrative for this incredibly diverse group of followers.
And then after dinner, a moment of solitude.
Yes. He walks alone for a bit, looks up at the stars, and the source gives us this incredible insight into his thoughts. He asks himself,
have I done enough?
Have I done enough?
Just think about that. He's conquered vast territories, defeated the mighty Persian Empire. The world is seemingly bending to his will, and he's wondering if it's enough.
It reveals this incredible restlessness, doesn't it?
A profound, deep-seated restlessness. An ambition that seems almost insatiable. Even world conquest doesn't quiet it.
And the source connects this to his grander vision, right? Not just conquering land,
but fusing East and West, creating a single unified empire. A new Hellenistic civilization that blends cultures, peoples, ideas. That was the truly revolutionary part of his vision.
Far beyond typical conquest. Oh, yeah. It wasn't just about territory. It was socio-cultural engineering on a grand scale, almost utopian for its time. It suggests his drive wasn't just military. It was about fundamentally reshaping the world according to his vision, imposing his order, his dream, onto reality.
What does that restless heart tell us about that kind of ultimate ambition? And was that fusion idea even possible back then?
Well, the restless heart suggests that for some, maybe especially people like Alexander, achievement just fuels more ambition. The goalposts always move.
The horizon keeps receding.
Exactly. The pursuit itself becomes the purpose. As for the fusion vision, incredibly ambitious, probably impossible to fully achieve in his short lifetime. The cultural divides, the sheer logistics. But did it drive him? Absolutely. It gave him the why for pushing further, for going towards India, towards the edge of the world. It was the engine. The pursuit of that grand, maybe unattainable goal propelled him onward.
And finally, the day ends. Night falls. He prepares for sleep. But even then...
He's not quite done. One last act. Before sleep, he studies.
Studies what?
A Persian text on astronomy. A gift, apparently, from some of his new Persian advisors.
That's fascinating. Learning from the people he conquered.
Isn't it? It confirms that insatiable hunger for knowledge again, but also, crucially, a willingness to learn from other cultures, to value their wisdom.
Which fits with the fusion idea.
Perfectly. If you want to fuse cultures, you have to understand and respect them, even those of former enemies. It shows an openness, an intellectual curiosity that goes beyond just military matters, merging the practical with the profound right up until the moment he falls asleep.
His eyes grow heavy. Tomorrow. More strategy, more marching, more destiny. But for now, the great Alexander sleeps.
The philosopher-king, the warrior, the visionary, all wrapped up in one person.
That summary really does capture it, doesn't it? This single day reveals all those facets. He was so much more complex than just the warrior image, driven by intellect, by this grand vision.
Precisely. That final image, studying, with the weight of destiny on his shoulders even as he drifts off. It humanizes him, but also emphasizes that extraordinary drive. He was never truly at rest. That internal fire. It was his greatest strength, and maybe his greatest burden, too.
What an incredible deep dive. Just by looking at one day, we've seen so much. His unwavering discipline right from dawn, the architect of empire.
And that hands-on, deeply personal leadership. Riding at the front, knowing names, connecting with his men in a way that truly bound them to him.
Then his strategic brilliance, that flexible approach, knowing when to use diplomacy, when to unleash the warrior.
Yeah, and the intellectual curiosity running through it all, debating philosophy amidst war, his strategic use of his divine status to honoring Zeus-Ammon.
And perhaps most powerfully, that restless, titanic ambition, not just land, but that dream of fusing East and West.
It really does give you a shortcut, doesn't it? Beyond the myths, into the complex reality of the man, a figure of huge contradictions, immense drive.
And it's amazing, even looking at an ancient conqueror's day, you could pull out these timeless insights about leadership, motivation, pursuing huge visions.
Absolutely. It's not just history locked in the past. It's about understanding the forces that drive people to do extraordinary things and the costs involved.
Yeah, it really leaves you thinking.
It does. And maybe here's a final thought to chew on. Building on that restless heart, that question, have I done enough?
Okay.
Maybe Alexander's greatest battle wasn't against Darius or Porus or any external enemy. Maybe it was internal, against the limits of his own seemingly boundless ambition.
Even with the world at his feet, he wasn't satisfied.
His heart was restless. So what does that tell us about ultimate power, ultimate achievement? Does it ever bring true satisfaction? Or is there always that restlessness?
And what's the legacy of someone who dreamt of fusing worlds but couldn't even satisfy his own heart?
Exactly. It's a profound question about human aspiration, its power, and maybe its limits, something to definitely mull over.